Yeah, I support defending the police, not defunding the police. We ought to take a road trip down to McAllen, Texas, and ask the widows of those two police officers that got shot before they could even get their gun out of their holster on a domestic disturbance. So if we had sent a social worker or two down there to McAllen, Texas, when they called for help because of a because of a domestic disturbance, we'd have 2 dead social workers right now. Does that accomplish what we're trying to accomplish? No. Do we need to provide some better training to some of our police departments? Yes. I had a conversation with a senior leader, if not the senior leader, one of our local law enforcement agencies. He said, we train our men and women to back up their partner. He said, we back up our partners in a gunfight. We back up our partners when we see things happen like what happened to George Floyd. Because the question is, why did those 3 other officers stand by and watch that? Why didn't they back up their partner who was literally killing a man? Why didn't they back him up? That's the question. A lot of police departments already do that, including some here locally in our own community. So we're not going to defund the police. You know, I'm standing here in Leawood, Kansas, and 18 years ago, there was a young woman that was actually in my son's graduating class at Blue Valley North, and she was brutally murdered. And but for the fact that her father and the Leawood Police Department tracked that guy down all the way to Connecticut. They tracked that jerk down all the way to Connecticut, found him, extradited him, brought him back, convicted him, and he's in prison for 50 years. And he's not doing that to anybody else's little girl. You know what? That's good police work. Are we going to defund that? No, we're not going to defund that. When I call 911, I want lights and sirens coming to my house. So we're not going to defund that. We're going to defend our police departments. If they need a little bit of extra training, we're going to make sure they get it. But we're not going to defund them.
First, I want to say that I come from a career military family. There are also police officers in our family. I view them as some of the most important servants to our community. I am not in favor of defunding the police. I've publicly said multiple times that I back the blue. One of the reasons for that is that when you think about communities, the future of the Kansas City community, for us to continue to grow and flourish, one of the most important things that people desire in one's community is for it to be safe. For it to be safe, as we discussed earlier, you know, families are then going to look for high quality education and other things that ultimately matter to have a high quality life. And so I do not favor defunding the police. That said, I do want to say that I think that we should do more, in particular, given the national dialogue, to support the Black community across the Kansas City region. That in and of itself means a lot of things. It means that we should all be seeking to support Black businesses. I think that jobs are the most important thing that we can do for the family. We should support business. As I mentioned earlier too, I think that we should support families. The scholarships that my charity Systems of Care initiative are offering in Wyandotte County, about 90% of the scholarships are going to either African American or Hispanic families. There are plenty of things that we can do to say we care about our neighbors. So we should take a step back and have a long-term view.
Do not support defunding the police. This is really near and dear to me because I have 2 brothers who are Kansas City, Kansas cops, and nephew who's Kansas City, Kansas cop. 20 first cousins who are Kansas City, Kansas police officers. I always thought that politicians had a thankless job, but definitely our law enforcement have a very thankless job. They get paid pennies and they put their life on the line for us each and every day to protect us. And so I would not be for defunding the police.
See in Kansas City is there's a lot of people who have mental problems that are homeless and drug addiction. And I would really like to see some money targeted for that. I don't think it's necessary to defund the police when there's a crime issues going on. It's again, I think we could solve a lot of the problems. I mean, you mentioned education. It doesn't take more money. It just takes money spent correctly and fix the literacy and math problems. I want to say this about Kansas City, Missouri School District. They have the #1 public high school in the state of Missouri. It's called Lincoln Academy. What's the qualifications to go to Lincoln? You have to be able to read and do math on grade level at 5th grade. And then you get to go to Lincoln. No one else can go. You know, if we had the math tutoring labs at 5th grade, guess what? I mean, beginning at 3rd, 4th, and 5th, like they do in all the Shawnee Mission, Blue Valley, Olathe. If we had that, and the money's there, we had that, how many other Lincoln Academies could we have? I want to see it go all over the nation and get that fixed. So.
First, want to say that, like many people in this country that I've found, whether it's George Floyd or other incidents across the country, they're abhorrent. That said, I think that what the police department can do, it's really critical to be very transparent. If there are bad actors, they should be transparent. Those bad actors should be held accountable. In addition to that, I do think it's worthwhile to look at and consider additional investment in training. I think it's worthwhile for us to constantly be talking about recruiting the best and the brightest to wear the uniform and to protect us in our communities. So those are the types of things that I strongly support: transparency, training. But again, I really want to support the police. I want to support police officers, and I want to live in a safe community just like everybody else.
You know, the unrest that we're witnessing is very understandable. There's no question that Black men are treated differently. We need to provide more funding for more police training so they can do their job. And then also, there's over 800,000 law enforcement officers across the United States. And we cannot just profile some bad apples and say they're all bad. I don't believe in that. But I do believe that we need to provide additional funding so that they can have adequate training so they can do their job.
Well, I'd really like to see that, you know, the very few people that are actually killed by unarmed people that are killed by police officers. For example, I believe there were 22 white individuals that were unarmed that were killed by police officers last year, and 12 black. I don't know what we're calling each other, black and white, but you know that's what we're doing. But of the 12 that were black, I think 2 of them, they were in a fight with a police officer, and you know, a police officer carries a gun and a taser and things, and they're trying to. You know, they're trying to protect themselves. But sometimes you have a situation like George Floyd. It was obvious to everyone in the nation that that officer should not have been on the force. There needs to be a record made of people that commit crimes as a police officer, and if they move to another, they shouldn't be able to move to another department without that other department knowing their history. So we've got to clean that up. But I'm a strong believer in the safety that the typical police officer, overwhelming, serves to actually protect us. And they're going into situations, well, they're running to the gunfire. You know, they're saying, hey, this is going on. And they're going in there with their sirens blasting, trying to get there as quick as they can. So I have a great deal of respect for police officers.
I kind of answered a little bit of that. So, you know, we can always improve. I always think that in business and certainly in government, a process of continuous improvement. So I think they watched the George Floyd situation. I think they watched what happened in Atlanta. They watched probably what happened down in McAllen, Texas, when those 2 officers got blown away right at the door. And there are lessons to be learned. And so in police work, just like in business, it's always a process of continuous improvement. So I don't know this for a fact, but I would trust that the leadership of every law enforcement organization in this country, from local law enforcement all the way to the very top, is saying, okay, let's make sure that our men and women in blue have got the very best training and the very best equipment that they need to go out and be effective in this time. And this is a time, you know, it's a very challenging time in our country where we're literally seeing tyranny in the streets when statues are being ripped down and flags are burned and churches are spray painted and monuments are desecrated, and police officers are being attacked while they try to stand guard. They're being attacked with, frozen water bottles and other types of chemicals and a whole bunch of other disgusting things. And so we watch that happening, and we all know that the police are doubling down on their training, and they want to be as effective as possible. And there's a lot of really good police officers out there, men and women that really love their community and they love what they do. And we need to always remember them and honor them. I'll tell you a really sad story. In my walking around the neighborhoods here, I actually happened on the home of a widow of a police officer that was killed in the line of duty right here in our own community. And when I looked up, I thought she was flying the American flag, but she was flying that black and white flag with that thin blue line. And we need to remember that thin blue line. That's the line that keeps good versus evil. And that's the line that keeps us protected. And we need to back the blue. And we don't need to be defunding the police. We need to defend the police. And so that's where I'm coming from. And I'll just tell you what, there's a lot of Republicans and independents and Democrats that don't like what they see in the streets right now. They don't want to see their streets on fire. And they want to get back. They want to get back to normal, not a new normal. They want to get back to normal in this country where we had respect and honor. And if we had a difference of opinion, we could have a dialogue about it. But you can't have a dialogue when the streets are on fire. And I think everybody can agree with that.